YouTube. We're going to let some folks into our Zoom audience as well. Hey, everyone, jumping in here on Zoom. Welcome, everyone, jumping in on Zoom. Good to have you here once again. Appreciate you showing up and hanging out with us as we look forward to the developments of spring and summertime coming very soon here.
Yes.
I'm in New York City today. It was cold and rainy the past couple of days, and it's actually nice and sunny right now. The warmth is is creeping around the corner. I'll explain the show here momentarily for those of you who it's your first time, you're just getting your bearings. And we'll introduce our guest for today. We spent about an hour and we had some fun talking about music and pianos and all that good stuff. So let me intro. This is Piano Tech Radio. I want to welcome you here. We gather every Saturday to meet with and learn from the most fascinating and knowledgeable folks in the piano world. Could be a manufacturer, a rebuilder, a musician, a maker of other instruments, or a player of other instruments. And of course, we're always welcoming piano techs to our community. Our mutual goal is to become better at our crafts, to help each other, and to create an ever more musical world together. Piano Tech Radio Hour is brought to you by Piano Technicians Masterclasses. Now, that is cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving your home. You can find out more at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. You can subscribe to Radio Hour as well for just 16 bucks a month. You get direct access to each week's private Zoom call, as well as all the archival recordings of over 200 episodes in the member area. You can join using the link bit.ly/joinptrh, bit.ly/joinptrh. We have a podcast audio only version of the show, popular globally. We've reached top 100, top 10, even number one status in various locales in the performing arts category on iTunes. And we have a blog that highlights some of our key concepts from the member area of the master classes. We've got socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and our email list, which you can sign up for at pianotechniciansmasterclass.com. Just your name and email, and you can stay up to date on the latest. In addition to that, I would love to intro today's guest. Today's guest is, do you like to say Scarlett or Scarlett?
It's Scarlett.
Scarlett, okay. It's kind of
Yeah.
spelled like Scarlett.
I know the extra E throws everybody off.
Scarlette Kerr. She's the founder of Music at 906 and holds a Master of Music from Salem College, where she studied injury preventative piano technique. Her teaching is shaped by music learning theory and a commitment to experiential, student-centered learning. She is a nationally certified teacher of music and remains active in her local music community as both a performer and educator, sharing her work through teaching, webinars, and collaborations. Scarlett, welcome to Piano Tech Radio Hour.
Thank you for having me, Ethan. I'm so excited to be here today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And one thing we can do straight off the bat is kind of admire your little musical workspace you have
Oh,
here.
thanks.
You've got a
I
lovely
can
grand
rotate
piano.
here.
What's that?
Yeah, here's my other side here, and then I'm sitting in front of a second piano here.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's a hybrid piano. The first piano I bought out of college, and so it's served me great. And then I got this soon after I started my studio. So yeah, I'm working out of the basement of my home, and I love
Very
it.
nice. Yeah, it's
Thank
got
you.
a nice vibe. It's got a learning. And what about what's on the shelves there? Are these all learning books? Is it
They're all, yeah, piano books, uh, textbooks, other like my own personal like development shelf of books I've read to
okay?
help me be a better teacher.
And we love how that keyboard is just relegated to the bottom shelf over there.
I
We've got the focus is on
know.
the acoustic pianos.
Right, yes. And then whenever I have group lessons, sometimes I'll send somebody over here and it just stays there and I think they find some joy of untraditionally sitting on the floor and just jamming over
Oh,
here. So
yeah,
yeah,
that's kind
it
of a
comes in
fun
handy.
setup.
It was
Yeah, I
a
like that.
happenstance.
Wonderful. One of the things I like to do at the beginning is go take a walk down memory lane with you
Sure.
from your own early musical experiences. How did you get started in music and piano? And how did you come to know what's the story behind becoming a professional, taking that path?
Yeah, I started piano when I was 4 years old, and it was not my choice. It was my parents putting me into music classes because they didn't have a chance to growing up, so they wanted that for their own kids. And so I started when I was 4. I hated practicing. I think like any other 4 or 5 year old who's being told what to do, I just really resisted it. But I would go and play a little bit at a time. But it really wasn't until I was around 7 or 8 years old that I really got into it. We made a cross-country move when I was 7, and I didn't have a piano for about 8 or 9 months. And I think that distance makes the heart grow fonder for some reason, and something clicked. And I would come home when we got our piano back from across the country. I remember going to music class and hearing the songs we would sing in music class and going home and plunking it out in the piano and realizing like, oh, that's kind of cool that I can do this.
Hmm.
Go back and show my music teacher at school, like I figured it out in the piano. And so eventually I asked my parents to put me back into piano lessons and it kind of just went from there. Um, uh, a cool thing is that who I consider like my formative elementary middle school teacher, she actually was a piano technician, she and her husband. Um,
Oh,
they got their degrees from Shenandoah Conservatory back when they had a piano tech program back in
great.
the
What was her name?
Marcia Berg or Marcia Tooley,
Marsha
it was
Burke.
her maiden name, Marcia
Okay.
Berg. Yeah, I think they're both retired now. But she was such a formative figure in my music education. And so going to her, she exposed me to a lot of different genres, but I went the classical route. For some reason, I liked listening to classical music. And so I kind of grew up with that. I became really involved in my music programs in school. And so I would accompany the recorder club by the time I was in fourth and fifth grade. I accompanied my school choir when I was in middle school and high school. And my choir directors, my band directors, I played flute and band. I was really active in music altogether, and I just loved it. But piano was like the foundation behind all of that. Like I was good at flute because I was good at piano. I was good at singing because I had piano. I think it was just the piano was just everything.
Hmm.
Um, so when I got to high school, I switched to a new teacher, and she was also wonderful, Mrs. Melton, and she was very encouraging for me to try out for like summer programs and scholarships and whatnot. And so I think around age 16, I thought that I could maybe try this as a career and go on to study music. And so I did all the work you have to do to audition for schools of music, and I ended up going to James Madison University. And I got my degree in piano performance with an emphasis in accompanying. So I did a lot of collaborative piano in my undergraduate experience. I played for choirs as
Sure.
well. I was a terrible memorizer, and I think the reason why I went down this route is because I think I was really comfortable with collaborating. Because I was playing for school choirs, I was playing for musical theater in high school as well, and so I was like, yeah, I could do this. Like, I am much more comfortable in this route than I am by myself from memory, because I was never really required to do that unless I was doing college auditions. So it was a huge learning curve for me to have to overcome those obstacles of anxiety and memorization because it just did not come easily to me. But I could sight read like a monster.
Hmm.
And so that's the kind of
I wish I could sight read. Like it says my thing. Like I mean, I can. I've gotten better at it the years.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
usually the opposite, you know. And I memorize, I can improvise, but reading, it's
Yeah.
just like
And the thing is, I feel like the way with me and my colleagues and my peers, it's either one or the other. Like
hmm
you're either really good at memorizing and improvising, but you're
hmm
not as good at sight reading, or you're really good at reading, but not so much the other stuff.
Yep.
Um, and so I thought that I was just not a memorizer, or I was just not given the gift of improvisation.
hmm
And that mindset has changed, and that's later down the road in my story. But yeah, I ended up doing like collaborative piano, but I really fell in love with of pedagogy and teaching when I took my pedagogy course in college. I had to take a semester, but I ended up taking two for fun. And I just loved teaching. And at that same time, I was being introduced to the work of Barbara Lister Sink. She's known for her DVD Freeing the Caged Bird. I don't know if you've heard of that, but she has come up with a method of how to teach good biomechanical principles of playing at the piano
Okay.
and to prevent injury. Because
Okay.
yeah, piano playing related injuries are much bigger issue in the field than we think. And
Hmm.
so her goal was to be able to prevent that or to help people recover from playing related injuries. And so
Mm.
I'm really fascinated by that. And so after I graduated, I took a gap year and did a lot of teaching. I did like a long-term subbing gig and for a middle school choir. So I did a lot of different things. And then I ended up going to grad school at Salem College where I did my training with her and did that. Um, at that same time, I'm coming across, like in my own personal research, so I love learning outside of school too, about teaching. And I came across the work of Edwin Gordon and his music learning theory and how we learn music, similar to a language. And a lot of the neuroscientific principles of learning and memory really coincided with what I was learning with Dr. Lister Sink and how to retrain the brain to learn a skill. And so that just kind of melded together and formed my master's experience and has kind of evolved into what I do with my students today, what I do
Cool.
today. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's kind of like the short-ish history.
Yeah. I went on to, I really enjoyed, I really didn't understand practicing until I would say even through a few years of university, right? I feel like
Yes.
I feel like it's getting better
Yes.
out there, but I when I look back at my development as a piano student, it seems glaringly obvious that no teacher ever told me how to practice. They would say,
Right.
practice,
Right.
and it
Right.
better be better next time I see you. But, you know, um, and then that's where I also got interested in neuroscience and and studied neuroscience as well. So
Mhm.
I love that overlap. It's very helpful too, because
It is.
intuitively you can start to you can intuitively understand how the brain is working as you play something and work through it and see the ways it works and the ways it
Right.
doesn't. Yeah.
And it honestly makes life so much easier when you understand how to work with the brain. Because you grew up thinking that the more hours you put in, the better you're going to be, which and there's that whole 10,000 hour rule, but I think there's a difference between it's like quality versus quantity. And just because
Absolutely.
you're sitting in a practice room for 3, 4 hours at a time does not mean that you're getting yourself quality practice. If you're just
Hmm.
drilling the same thing over and over again without making any assessment and changes to what you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, and so I learned, yeah, I did not learn how to practice. Maybe not until grad school. Like I thought I had a semblance of practice when I got to undergrad, and that was a rude awakening. And my professor in college really helped me understand better how to better practice in undergrad, but it wasn't until grad school that I was giving the like psychological or the neuroscientific principles of why we do it this certain way for you to get the
Hmm.
best results. And I
Hmm.
think it was not until then that I really understood like how to practice. And that
Hmm.
what I was doing was not necessarily the best way to do it.
Yeah. Have you read Molly Gabrian's book
I
about
have it on my
practicing?
shelf, but I have not read it yet. But it's on
Oh,
my
okay.
on my to be read list. I've
Well,
heard really good things.
we had her as a guest, and then we also had her do a master class where she kind
Oh,
of
amazing.
we dove into the concepts in the book. So
Oh,
if
awesome.
you want a little tutorial, we can get you
Yeah,
in
I'll
on the
check
master
that
classes.
out. Yeah, I've heard
But
amazing.
yeah, one of the techniques that I love that, and in the master class I was like the guinea pig, so I would try different things that she was explaining in the techniques, and one of them, which I loved, was, and I also was so impressed by how effective it was, and I don't know how unexpected is this kind of rubber ducking technique of practice.
Mhm.
So, famously, rubber ducking is like mainly comes from the development community of programmers, right? Where they're trying to solve a problem and they put a little rubber duck on their desk and they talk to it, and that somehow helps them work through the problem. So she cited research where they've actually done the research where you have like a little stuffed animal or a little third party personality and you talk to it about your practicing and you do, I think, three steps. One, you tell it what you're about to practice and what your goal is going to be, right?
Okay.
And then I think you either talk through or at least intentionally think through, okay, so now I'm doing that, right?
Mhm.
So like, oh, that third note on the measure, I always miss it. My finger isn't quite there or whatever.
Mhm.
That's what I'm going to make sure I hit that in time with the right dynamics. And then you do it. And then afterwards, you out loud again to the little stuffed animal, the rubber duck or whatever, you reflect. Oh, you know what? For some reason I tried it, but I still didn't get it. I thought I was focused. You know what? You just say it out loud and then you just kind
Yeah.
of repeat this process. But it's way different than just kind of sitting there. I'm practicing.
Right.
Just kind of going over it. It's
Right.
way more productive when you do it. It forces
Right.
intentionality into the
That reflection
process.
aspect of it is so important.
Yes. Um, yeah, I wasn't really familiar as much with this learning methodology that you
Mm.
mentioned, the music learning theory. Can you tell us just like a little bit more about the origins and how you
Yes,
discovered it and stuff?
I can try. It's
Okay.
um so Edmund Gordon was a musician, a bassist, who also had degrees in psychology. I think he has a doctorate in psychology. And I think he was really fascinated by the idea of how children specifically learn music. And the theory essentially is about how we learn. And if I can do it in a way that makes sense and hopefully correctly, I don't want to butcher it. We learn music similar to how we learn a language. That's the biggest analogy. And when you're learning a
Mm,
language, you are listening to it as a child, you're babbling and you're imitating your parents when you're learning how to speak, then you're forming sentences, and then eventually learn how to read and write your thoughts. And so with music, there are periods of development in a child's life where they are being exposed to music. Um, they're listening to it, they're being sung to by their parents. They eventually start babbling or singing back. They learn how to sing. They're recognizing that there are specific types of patterns in music that are common and that repeat. And then eventually, when they're formally learning how to do music, we are giving labels to these different types of harmonic patterns, rhythm patterns, tonal patterns, melodic patterns. And they're able to begin to improvise with that at the instrument or with the voice. They're able to understand these different patterns in specific contexts, like in keys or tonalities or meter. And then eventually they'll be able to be exposed to reading and understand what all of those sounds look like on paper. But a lot of traditional methodology starts with what's on the page. Um, Audiation-based instruction does not, it starts away from the page. We're aware of notation, we point it out, but it's not like I'm telling a kid, this is middle C, can you play middle C?
mhm,
There's a lot of movement involved to be able to help your brain encode what it feels like to be in a consistent meter. There's a lot of singing involved to encode what it feels like to sing a major triad in the different arrangements of tones in a major triad or a minor triad within the context of a major keyality or tonality, in a minor tonality, then even other modes like Dorian and Mixolydian and Lydian. And so that concept was very, very new to me. When I was in college and in choir, it was a very Kodai based school. So there was a lot of oral training involved in understanding and using solfege and understanding different intervallic relationships using movable do and law based minor. And I loved that because it actually helped me have a better connection with my instrument, knowing how these keys are related to each other. Because I think for me, my problem when it came to memorization and improvisation is that, like, yeah, I could hear everything in my head, but I didn't know where to put it on the piano. There was no connection between like what I was hearing and how I would produce what I was hearing. And being able to put a label or sing, like at least sing in solfege, maybe see, okay, if this is this, and I can make that connection to the keyboard. And that made a huge difference for me because there was something concrete that I could hold on to, like a system.
mhm,
And so I've learned about this theory of learning, there have been a methodology that has been developed from that theory. Because music learning theory is not a curriculum, it's just a theory. But there have
Mm,
been curriculums designed around this theory of teaching. And so there was a pianist by the name of Marilyn Lowe who developed her own piano curriculum based off this theory. And the very beginning of piano instruction is that we're away from the piano moving and singing and using Le Bon movement. If you're familiar with the Le Bon movement, using the
mhm,
concepts of flow, weight, space, and time to
mm,
experience music um, and understand like space and weight. And that all translates into what you're playing at the instrument eventually. If you're playing a particular rhythm,
mm,
there's an amount of movement you have to make to be able to play that rhythm correctly. Um, and without having to worry about counting. And there's a context given when you're moving to a beat, how like what a macro beat or a large beat feels like, what a micro beat feels like, and how those are divided and organized. And so I'm chanting to my students, they're echoing me. I'm singing to my students, they're echoing me. Eventually, as I get older, we're at the piano, we're learning um, keyboard skills of like, all right, when G is do, here is everything that is related to do at the keyboard. And we mess around with that. Here is, say, relationships, but we're going to do it in C. Then we're going to do it in F. And they're improvising also with these different contexts as well. And I think it gives them more confidence and familiarity with the piano that when I finally begin putting notation in front of them, I can say, this is what this looks like. And they can make easier connections as opposed to me pointing out this is C, this is E, this is G,
mhm.
or this is a quarter note. We're going to count one, two, three, four. It's very, I think it's much more organic in how they're learning and they're making connections as they go. And they ask amazing questions about like, what does that mean in the page? Oh, okay, so that means that this will mean this. I'm like, yes. And so it's just, it had completely transformed how I taught
Mm,
and how I think about music. And it made me a better musician too, because I feel like I'm much more comfortable with the idea of improvisation. Not that I'm like amazing at it, but I think it's not nearly as intimidating as I thought
sure.
as it used to be.
And how familiar are you with like Suzuki learning
I'm
processes?
it's really similar with
Hmm,
with the concept of the imitation.
hmm,
Um, I don't necessarily want to speak to the differences because the similarities may be more than the differences, but it's
hmm.
very familiar or very similar to the Suzuki methodology in terms of
Yeah.
that imitation
I
aspect
mean,
of it.
before you started talking about it, my son takes Suzuki violin,
Huh?
sorry, cello. So
Oh,
I'm
cool.
kind of watching how that, I didn't do Suzuki when I was a kid, but yeah, it's interesting to watch the first couple of years of his playing. It was just, just showing how to play something,
Mm,
listening to things, playing them back. And it was fun to see how good he got at kind of knowing how to play something just from hearing it.
yeah.
If you're used to having to hear what the do re mi feels like on the cello,
Uh-huh.
and you're not actually looking at a page, it actually makes it easier to be like,
Yes.
oh yeah, and this would be the next note.
Mhm.
Um, but it does sound like what you're talking about has some extra or different facets than just the Suzuki method, where,
Right.
okay, you're learning some songs. Of course, Suzuki has a set of songs that you go
Right.
through that's like developmental, but it sounds like there's movements and other things that are involved in some of the things you're
Mhm.
doing that are, it's a different approach than Suzuki. Yeah.
Right. But the folk literature aspect of it is similar. Like a lot of the curriculum is mainly folk tunes.
Hmm.
Because if you're familiar with folk tunes, that they're the best vocabulary bank to use when it comes to improvising. Because when you take something familiar, it's easier to take something familiar and change it first when you're learning how to improvise. So the one big facet of music learning theory is the concept of whole part whole when you're doing instruction. So for example, if I'm teaching, we'll say hot cross buns, and I'll first play it for them. They'll listen to it, they'll move to it. I'll ask, what meter are we in? Are we in two or are we in three? And they'll say they'll feel it and they'll make an assessment of the macrobeat, microbeats, and they'll say, oh, we're moving in two. Like, great. Let's chant the rhythm pattern. And we use a system that's Gordon Froseth syllables. So I use do for macrobeats, do day for microbeats. And so I'll say do day do day do, and then they'll repeat after me do ta data do day do. Great. Can you play that at the piano in one key? And they'll play it in one key. So at that point, they're experiencing it in their bodies after having chanted it. Can you make up your own little idea using any keys you want using those rhythm patterns? And so
Mm,
they do. And then I'll show them the piece, and then we'll talk about the melodic patterns like mi, re, do, and they'll sing it back. Can we find out the piano? If this is do, here's mi, re, do. Can you play it all over the piano? Can you make something out of that idea, mi, re, do, or play it in different orders and in do, re, mi, and they'll do that at the piano. And so then I'll show them how it works. They'll be able to play it. And then we can say, can we play it when C is do or when G is do? And they can easily do that. Can we make up a new counter melody? Can you add an accompaniment, like an easy one, depending on the leveling? Um, can we change it to minor? What would it sound like if we were playing it in minor? And so they do that. And it's a lot of fun. Um, this last fall, we did I had like a blues themed recital. And so what I had the older student, more experienced students do is take a folk tune like Hot Cross Buns and we bluesified it. We kind of put it into like a AAB type of format. And we put it in the context of a blues scale. And like, what would it sound like if we were to play Hot Cross Buns in a bluesified manner? And that was a lot of fun for them because they understood how to play hot cross buns, and it's easy to manipulate something that you're familiar with. And then they can start incorporating their own improvisation or their own patterns or their own ideas after that. But that's just something that gives them a deeper understanding of the mechanics of something rather than just knowing the piece.
mm. Yeah, it's cool to hear the ins and outs of how you actually execute. And what um what age ranges are you typically working with? Are you mostly doing early childhood? Are you,
Yeah,
do
mostly
you teach
kids.
adults as well, or?
I have taught a few adults. I only have one adult student right now, but I like working with kids. I think there's just some type of energy that they bring that I really enjoy working with. I start kids as early as 4, and I've taught through essentially like end of high school. But
Hmm.
it's fun to see the progression of how they start, and then they become and as they get older they become much more confident in their own abilities. And it's as they get older, they're with their brain development at the same time. It's like everything kind of clicks at the same time, or they're just like, oh wait, I understand what we've been doing, and I could just do this by myself. Um, it's yeah, they're little independent, opinionated musicians, and it's great to watch.
I had some students. Uh, I particularly had this student that I think it was one of my autistic students. This was many years
Oh,
ago when I was
mhm.
teaching. That I was at this little piano store which had lessons in the back. They had a little
Oh,
extra revenue stream, and um, they would always stick me with the kids that the other teachers were intimidated at teaching. Like I
oh,
got blind students, and
oh,
I got
cool.
autistic students, and so like Ethan has the patience for these these students. And I had at least one autistic student, and I think at least one more. So you would show a kid, here's how you do XYZ. You were teaching them a lesson about how the piano works and how music works.
Right,
And then the kid would come back and be like, okay, now let me teach you how it works, And then they would
right.
make up some theory about how music works. I'm like,
They have,
okay,
yeah,
well, that's
they
not what
love
we're
the
doing
mechanics
here.
of it.
I'm the teacher.
Right. But
Uh,
those lessons are fun though because you can learn a lot from those type of students.
mhm,
And it's so
absolutely.
fascinating to watch them because they just like their minds are moving a million miles a minute. Like, oh wait, if you can do this, you can do that, and they can get like completely derailed. But sometimes it's for the better. But yeah, it's it works great for the type of students that just really want to know like why, and you can like, okay, well we can go into that and
Mm.
just explore those
I have
questions.
one more story I'll share that's fun. It's sort of off topic, but
Oh, that's
I'll
okay.
always remember this. I had a little girl student, Giggly, and she was so good at it would be me and her mom and her in the room, right? Because she was, I don't know, she's probably like, 7 or 8 or something. And she could get everybody giggling. You know how like it's
It is
contagious,
always fun.
right? And there's some
Yes.
kids giggling and then and she was so good at just making everybody giggle. And her mom would be like, stop it. I'd be like, it's fine. You need a good giggle every once in a while.
Right. Oh, yes.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about just pianos, because so you got two pianos there. You
Mhm,
said you have a hybrid piano.
mhm,
You have a grand over there.
mhm.
Um, tell us about the hybrid. In what way is it hybrid? Is it like a silent piano? Is it what makes it hybrid?
So, from my understanding, it's a hybrid. It's electrically powered, but it
Okay.
feels like an acoustic instrument, or
Oh,
otherwise
okay, got
like
it.
an acoustic instrument. At least that's what they
Okay.
told me when I bought it.
Okay.
But yeah, and so it's great. When I graduated, I was from college. Like my husband and I were living in a 400 square foot apartment, so I didn't have a lot of space for a piano, nor could
Hmm.
I have a piano that would be loud because of neighbors. And so I spent whatever savings I had left after graduating on this great, it's a Yamaha NU1, I think. And I would just teach from this piano, and the touch was great. The sound quality was nice. I could put headphones in, it'd be fine.
Mm.
Um, and so I like, and it's easy to move. So when we moved to North Carolina, where we are now, it was not hard to pack up, right?
Okay.
We pick it
And
up,
it
move.
doesn't need tuning.
No, it doesn't need
Okay.
tuning.
Okay.
This one absolutely does, but this one
There's
did
a
not.
certain type that I've tuned. Well, they call it a maybe it's not called a hybrid. I mean, they probably have very specific names. I was thinking also transacoustic. Have you ever heard of those?
Oh no.
So they have it's got the traditional acoustic upright piano. You might have it on a U1, and
Mm.
then it also has the system where you can play the keyboard and it'll play, a digital piano sound. But then
Oh.
the speaker for the a digital piano sound is they use the soundboard of the piano to output the sound through. So that's why they call it transacoustic, because the digital piano is going through the soundboard of the piano. And then
Oh,
also famously, you can play them at the same time. You can have your digital going, you can have
oh,
the acoustic going. It helps if they're in tune together, of course.
right.
And they're both sort of resonating through the soundboard, so it gives an interesting
Oh,
quality. I've only really
interesting.
worked on a couple of those.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Are they common or?
I haven't seen a lot of them, to be honest,
Yeah.
so I don't think they are that common. Yeah, but they are some of them are around. And then what about this grand piano? So finally,
Yeah.
it looks like you probably have more than 400 first Crete right there in
Oh
that
yeah.
base.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we've moved a few times before landing here,
Mhm.
but this is a Boston, and I have to remember I always forget the actual model. I want to say it's a 163 or something, but I found this on Facebook Marketplace.
Hmm.
Because as when I started my studio, it's just out of graduate school. So again, it's not like I had a lot of funds to run off of. But after about a year of teaching, I had enough saved up. But somebody in a very wealthy neighborhood was like, switching out. It's like she bought this to take lessons from, which is awesome. But and she ended up not taking lessons anymore. She wanted to get a new dining set, and so she was getting rid of this piano. And so I drove down there, and I'm like, this is in great condition. It's hardly been touched. So, and I got a really good deal for it. So, yeah, and now it's here where it's played on every day.
Yeah, get a
And
lot of
it
use.
handles, yeah, and I love it. And so, and kids are fascinated with the insides because they probably are used to it, digital pianos upright. So they're very fascinated by the inside of the piano.
Hmm.
So they're always peeking behind. And sometimes if I don't have anything on here, I'll open up the lid to show them what's on the inside. But
Mm.
yeah, I didn't grow up with a grand piano either. I grew up with it upright. So it was it was nice to be able to finally afford something that I was playing through schools.
Now, did you decide you were in the market for a piano and you're looking lots of places in Facebook Marketplace? Just one of them, or did you just see it on Facebook Marketplace? You're like, oh, maybe it's time to get a piano.
Uh, yeah, I think it was more the latter.
Okay. You just
Because I
say,
I was just casually looking. I mean, well, no, actually. I do remember going to music stores and like looking at the prices of pianos and looking at what I'm looking for overall. But at that point, it was more like a long-term plan to save up to put like a deposit down on one. And then I came across this and I was like, I don't think I want to pass up the opportunity. So
Mm, nice.
yeah,
And where again are you located?
I'm in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Okay, you are in Winston-Salem still. And
Mhm.
then have you found yourself a good technician? Is it easy to
Yeah,
get
I had a
connected
great
or
yeah, I had a great one. He would tune for Salem College. He also tuned for the North Carolina School of the Arts because it's down the street from Salem College.
Mhm.
Bill Huseman. He was wonderful. And then he retired. So I
What's the
have
last name?
Huseman, Bill Huseman.
Huseman? Okay.
Yeah, he was great. And then now I have his successor who took over his business, Krista Coppage.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and so she's great. So we necessary piano technicians. It's important to have a good one. So we're lucky to have a lot here. It's a very big arts community here in Winston-Salem. So it's a good community plethora.
And is that where there's witches? No. Is this
No, you're
someplace
thinking
else?
Salem,
Salem,
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
This is the Moravian Salem. Yeah, I know. Everyone asks. It's okay. So Winston-Salem is known for their Moravian community. Salem, Massachusetts, I think it's the witches.
Moravian?
Yes, it's a religious denomination that I
Oh,
hadn't heard of it until I moved here, but it's a big like Salem College was one of the first all-female schools in the country, and
okay.
I think one of the oldest, and it was founded by the Moravian Church.
Oh, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know if they're affiliated anymore, but so it's like a rich history of that here in
Hmm.
town. Yeah, so it's a cool little area.
And and tell me again how you ended up there. Do you have
For,
background in
um
Carolinas or that's just
No, well, I grew up in Virginia, and so that's where I was before moving here.
uh,
I came here for graduate school,
just okay, and then you just
in
stuck
college
around.
here, yeah, and then we just stuck around because my husband found a great job, and we found a home, and so we were just like, okay, we're just gonna be here, and it's worked out pretty well.
Very nice. And in terms of like do you like to perform? Do you have recitals for your students? You know, is that part of your practice?
Yeah, um, we have recitals twice a year, and I'm trying to, I don't want to say pivot, but as the world is changing. And the audience of who I'm teaching is changing. I'm trying to find like more ways for students to see how they can make music in non-formal settings.
Mhm.
Because if I want my students to be lifelong musicians, I think about adults who play piano who are not professionals, and I'm like unless they're taking lessons, they may not be performing in front of an audience like in a formal studio recital. They might be in a band or they might play for choir, play for church. And so while I do have traditional studio recitals, I'm trying to like start thinking about what can I do for my students to make them feel that they can do this outside of a formal
Mm.
piano lesson setting.
Oh
So,
yeah.
um, so we are going to a retirement community for our end of year recital and playing for a memory care unit. This will be our second time doing this, or third.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and so, because you can still play for other people, but
Hmm.
it doesn't necessarily have to be like a stage, lights,
Hmm.
audience situation. It can be just in a memory care unit or
Hmm.
any other type of community. And then there was the blues and jazz recital we did this past fall, where I had my students play their blues pieces with a band. So my really good friends were on bass and drums, and one of my students' parents played guitar. And I asked parents who were musicians, so who played instruments, if they were interested in playing with their kid to join. And so, of course, there was very little time for rehearsal, so we're all just kind of putting it together in the moment. Like the kids prepared as best they could, and then my friends joined in at the performance. But I wanted to get to show them like you can do this with your friends or your family. Um, at any time, anywhere. We
Mm.
were in a park and it was cool to have it at a park, and I was at a very casual setting. And they had a lot of fun, and the parents loved it because they were like, we never had to do this when we were in piano lessons. And so it was cool that this is
Right.
something a little bit different. So I'm trying to think of ways that like and I can still continue to do the traditional way. I have no issues with that. I think it's also a good setting for kids because it's a learning experience for them and a growing experience for them. But I also
Mm,
want to give them opportunities to be able to say like to themselves, oh, I could do this after I'm out of high school, or if I decide not to go to be, to university for music.
yeah.
Because the reality is that I'm probably not going to teach a lot of kids that are going to go on to do this professionally, which is
Hmm.
fine. But I still want music to be prevalent in their lives.
Hmm. Yeah, you're making me think of the fact that for some reason, when I was growing up and taking lessons, all the way through high school, no teacher. Now, I only had like a handful of different teachers, two or three, but
Mhm.
none of the teachers had me do recitals. And
Wow.
so my first performance experiences were just kind of like in a band in high school, right, as the
Yeah.
keyboard player. And looking back, it was kind of like nerve-wracking and confusing. What is it like?
Yeah.
Even when I got to college and be performing in front of people, I mean, I got used to it. But I always thought, wow, if I could have just done recitals when I was a kid, I had just like a much stronger foundation, your confidence in
Right.
front of people. I watched my 8-year-old, ever since he did his first recital, like he won't, if you ask him to play at like Christmas time, oh, playing for your aunts and uncles at Christmas, he's like, no, 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 I don't want to. But
Oh,
when it's time for the recital, he just walks right up
you're
there
ready.
and he plays and he thinks nothing of it. And for some reason, it's that setting that he almost likes it, right? He likes to
Right.
be in the formal setting in front of people.
Right.
But yeah, you never get that experience. It's good for any kid, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
even if you're just taking a few lessons, these opportunities get in front of people. They say
Absolutely.
they say more people are afraid to be giving the eulogy at a funeral than to be in the casket.
Oh,
Because
that's
yeah, it's just like
fair.
public speaking is like one of our biggest fears of being in front of people.
Yeah, for sure. And growing up too, that I think about it, my teachers never did. Well, my elementary school teacher didn't really do recitals either, like formally. Not that I think about it. We did. She would take me to like, a neighbor's house, and we would play for the neighbor. And I was getting my performance experience accompanying for the school choir or doing other
Hmm.
music groups
Right.
where, but there were very little like times where I was by myself, which I think is probably why I was more
Yes.
comfortable in that collaborative setting. So I
Yes.
was really used to playing with other people. And so when I
Yes.
had to go to college and play by myself, that was such a rude awakening because I hated
Mm.
it. And I was, oh man, I was so stressed every time I had to play by myself from memory. And so yeah, playing with other people is so enjoyable. But I think it would have been good if I had those experiences to play by myself for an audience. That happened a couple times, but I think less than probably what my students are going to be getting by playing in front of an audience at least twice a year.
Yeah. Yeah, the
Um,
solo aspect that does very
yeah,
much for me as well. It's like, yes, I got to play in a band, but when
yeah,
it came time to just be, okay, it's just me, whether it was jazz or classical or whatever.
yeah.
Like I remember doing an audition. When I decided I want to go to audition for music schools. Just even doing my auditions for music schools, like doing solo classical, but those
Mhm.
were my first like
Yeah,
recital. Like, I had no idea what to do.
exactly. Same. It's a pretty much. So I think it's good to have a balance of both because music is fun when you're making it with other people, but it's also a really good personal growth experience to go on a stage and share and to go through all the psychological processes of recovering from mistakes, recovering mentally from any stress that you have to go through because it is a stressful experience. Like I'm not gonna lie, and I tell my students it's very normal to feel nervous, and it's okay if you make a mistake. It's important. It's just important you keep going and that you are like, recover from it well up here too. But those are formative experiences that make kids be able to grow in their character. I don't think I would be as good at public speaking. So I did a lot of public speaking in high school on the forensics team. and I did a lot of public speaking. I do presentations a lot now as a teacher for conferences and whatnot. Um, I think piano is was a huge part of that because
Yeah.
I feel like it's easier to talk in front of people, honestly, than it is to perform in front of people. So if you can
Mm,
perform in front of somebody, you can absolutely talk in front of somebody.
mm. Actually, I've heard the opposite
I
sometimes.
know, and
I
I
can
have
play in
friends
front of
who
you,
are the
but I can't
complete
talk.
opposite. So, but I think those they're just it's the synergy between the two that that's just still good for human development.
So we're gonna wrap up here pretty soon, and I just love to hear. Is there any like last minute things you wanted to talk about, or some words of wisdom to
Um,
share, some links to
oh,
send people to, or
well, I forgot to mention that in college I did take a piano technology class. One
oh, that's
semester.
cool.
They offered that as part of the curriculum, and so I got to take piano technology from a former tone meister from Steinway,
Hmm.
Terry Walsh. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, it was a fun class. A lot of it was us listening to his experiences working in New York City,
Okay.
um, tuning for famous people.
Mm-hmm.
But he was such a great guy, and he was very passionate about what he did. And I remember I had my notes still about partials or whatnot, but I don't think I could
Mm.
tune a piano confidently to save my life. But
Mm.
yeah, it was a really, and then we got to take a field trip to the Steinway factory my senior year, thanks to his connections. And we got a personal
Oh,
tour from the president or whoever was top guy in there at the factory. It's like a big like class trip essentially. Um, so piano technicians have been very formative actually in my life. Like I'm very appreciative for them. I know they do.
cool.
But yeah, otherwise, I mean, my I have an Instagram, but I'm terrible at maintaining like at posting regularly. Is I'm so wrapped up in like doing the work that I forget to like share the work. I
Sure.
could always think
It's
about
hard.
that. But my Instagram, if anyone's interested, would be music at 906.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I think we're in the middle of our March Madness tournament that we have here with keyboard skills. So everyone's against each other. And it's a motivating way for them to practice because they want to get a higher score than the next person. So yeah, we're
What do you
just
get high
always
scores for? What's the
so
criteria?
they the criteria is that they have to perform like their cadences, arpeggios, and scales,
Hmm.
and the major, relative, minor with as little mistakes as possible.
Okay.
And so that which makes and there's no speed requirement, but
Okay.
but the requirement is that they play it correctly with the correct fingering.
Yeah.
Because it makes them be really intentional about how they're playing,
Hmm.
make as little mistakes as possible. And so if you get like -1 point for each mistake you make or bad fingering or something like that. And so there's a
Hmm.
bracket that we have, and you're against somebody that week, and whoever gets the highest score between the two move on to the next round.
Mm.
And whoever wins gets like the big prize.
Yeah, I
So
like it. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm
they
all about
look into it.
gamification. It's and people, yeah, people love competition.
Yeah, they do. And I'm always surprised at how motivated they are by it. And especially when it's something public that everyone's going to see, like a score, they're like,
Hmm.
oh, like I gotta get it together. So no one
Mm.
sees my bad score or something like
Yeah.
that. But it's really good friendly competition. So it's like a tradition we do. So yeah, we're in the midst of that before we start getting into spring recitals and whatnot. But yeah, that's
Cool.
we're into right now.
Yeah, you're making me think I don't I'm not qu- I don't know if I'm quite ready to share about it, but I guess I'll do it real quick. Um, I'm building a an app where you can learn how to tune by ear, piano by ear,
Ooh.
and it's gamified. So you have like you got your little keyboard here,
Well, that's
and
cool.
you can listen, and then you could make the notes sharp or flat. It walks you through like a temperament sequence.
Oh wow.
And if you get a correct answer, you get a little celebration. If you get an incorrect, you get a point, off. And then there's gonna be like a leaderboard here.
Well, there you
So
go.
it's gonna
See,
time you, it's
exactly.
gonna time you. If you can get it done quickly with the least mistakes, you get higher on the leaderboard.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
but yeah, it's
Yeah. Take advantage of the dopamine hits. That's really what keeps it
you
going, right?
gotta do it.
Modify it.
Did you ever try Duolingo?
No. I mean, maybe like for a week. Being,
My
yeah,
son's
stuff
my
like that.
son's
I can't
doing
stay
it,
with it
and
for
it's
long.
great. It's great to like see how they do gamification. basically.
Yes. Yeah,
Because they
yeah.
do like little leaderboards. But what's
Mhm.
interesting, I met a guy who was actually high up um in gaming, like
Huh?
mobile games and stuff like
Wow,
that.
yeah.
And he was saying that one of the holy grails of the moment is matching when you have these multiplayer games that are global,
Huh?
matching and you have two people versus one another, matching their skill levels is
Mm,
actually algorithmically, if you can do it well, then it's good, right? It's a good thing to be
yeah,
able to do, and it's not easy to do. And the trick is when you're gamifying things or where you're playing a game, if it's too hard, if you're matched with somebody who's too much better than you, too many times you give up
right.
because, it just
What's
seems
the point?
pointless.
Yeah,
But the opposite is also pointless. If you're
correct.
matched with somebody who's worse than you and it's too easy, you're like, oh, I'm done with this game. I figured out
Yeah,
how to do it. So the secret is like putting folks together where there's enough of a questionable outcome, right? That
right.
both people are enjoying the competition between the things. So yeah, that's something. And I guess the leaderboard probably, are you doing sort of like a bracketed thing
Yeah,
like they
yeah,
do?
I have brackets posted already here with everyone's names, and so they're all like
Nice.
hoping against this week, and they
Yeah.
know each other already, so they have an idea who they're up against.
Yeah.
So you're right, it makes it very motivating for them.
Yeah, but it has that natural progression, right? Because of course, by the
Right,
time you get to the end of the bracket, of course, you're with somebody who was performing highly, right? But
right,
on the
yeah,
earlier stages, it's up to anybody's, whether you
right,
get a good
exactly.
match or not.
Yeah.
Cool. I love that. Um, well, thanks very much for joining. Any other last
No,
minute
I think
stuff or?
that's pretty much it. Yeah, I mean, I could go forever about other stuff, but it's only so
Mhm.
much time.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. Well, I'll do our little outro, and then of course when we sign off, just sign back on the Zoom real quick, and you and I'll do a quick wrap up. But
Sounds good.
yeah, I'll walk us off. It has been another fun-filled musical journey here at Piano Tech Radio Hour, and of course, thank you to our lovely guest Scarlette Kerr for joining us, as well as our live participants today. As always, we're brought to you by Piano Technicians and Master Classes, cutting edge instruction from piano industry masters without leaving home. For those of you that joined us today by signing up for this session individually, you can make your life more convenient. Subscribe to PTRH. That's $16 a month. Get the recording of today's session in our member area, as well as automatic registration for each week's news session. Sign up at bit.ly/join PTRH. That's bit.ly/join PTRH. Don't forget about the podcast, the Substack blog, the socials, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the email list that you can sign up for at our website. And that'll be it for today. We'll see you all again next week. And in the meantime, have a great week. All right, bye-bye.